The blue light from the computer screen cast shadows across Simone's face as she stared at the spreadsheet that would change everything. Column headers read, coffee temperature, greeting enthusiasm, meal quality, physical appearance score, bedroom availability. Her name sat at the top, Simone Performance Tracker Q4 results. Below, rows upon rows of dates, scores, and color-coded ratings stretched back 2 years. Red meant failure. Yellow meant acceptable. Green meant she'd earned his attention that day. She had opened Brandon's laptop looking for a recipe he'd mentioned. Instead, she found a detailed analysis of her worth as a wife, calculated and categorized like a performance review. Her hands trembled as she scrolled through assessments of how she'd dressed, spoken, cooked, and existed in their home. Comments filled the margins: too tired after work, unattractive attitude. Laughed too loud with neighbor, embarrassing. Gained 3 pounds, needs to refocus on fitness. The worst part was not the cruelty of the system itself. It was recognizing every moment he'd referenced. 3 months ago, when she'd been so proud of making his mother's complicated recipe, and he'd barely acknowledged it. She'd found him later at his desk typing. Now she knew, he'd been entering her score. A 6 out of 10. Acceptable effort, but flavors needed refinement. Simone's stomach turned as she remembered last Tuesday. She'd worked a double shift at the hospital, come home exhausted, and asked if they could order takeout. Brandon had sighed, given her a long disappointed look, and said, "I guess I can't expect you to earn quality time when you're always too tired." She'd felt guilty, had apologized, had pushed through exhaustion to cook his favorite meal. The spreadsheet showed her that night. Yellow rating. Made effort to correct laziness. Responded to feedback. 2 years. 730 days of her life reduced to color-coded cells and numerical scores. She clicked to another tab, intimacy tracking. Her throat tightened. He'd rated every private moment between them, noted what she'd worn, how she'd responded, whether she'd initiated adequately. Comments suggested improvements. Suggested. As if their marriage was a performance review and he was her manager. Another tab, financial contributions. Despite her full-time nursing salary, despite splitting bills equally, the spreadsheet calculated her net value by subtracting what he considered her lifestyle costs, groceries she selected, the heating bill when she was cold, the water for her longer showers after 12-hour shifts at the hospital. Simone sat back in Brandon's expensive office chair, one of many purchases she'd never questioned. Her nursing scrubs suddenly felt suffocating. She looked around the home office, seeing it clearly for the first time. Everything was his taste, his choice, his territory. When had she stopped having opinions about their shared space? She remembered their wedding 4 years ago. Brandon had been charming, successful, attentive. A marketing executive with confidence and ambition. She'd been finishing nursing school, exhausted but excited about their future. He'd seemed supportive, proud of her dedication to helping people. When had that shifted to this clinical assessment of her adequacy? Her phone buzzed. Brandon, working late. Don't wait up. Remember we discussed you needing to keep better routines? Early nights help you look fresher. She stared at the message, seeing it through new eyes. Not concern. Control. Another data point for his twisted evaluation system. Simone's fingers hovered over the keyboard. Part of her wanted to delete everything, pretend she'd never seen it. But she was a nurse. She recognized infection when she saw it. This marriage was diseased and no amount of denial would heal it. She grabbed her phone and photographed every tab, every column, every cruel comment. Then she opened Brandon's email, her heart pounding. If he had a spreadsheet tracking her, what else was he hiding? The first suspicious email was from 3 months ago. No full name, sending Brandon apartment listings across town. Can't wait until we don't have to sneak around anymore, one message read. Just need to time it right financially. She's stable income while I build the business. Simone's vision blurred. She clicked through more emails. Tiffany. That was the full name. Brandon's co-worker from the marketing firm. The woman he'd assured Simone was just a work friend, when she'd appeared too often in his stories. Tiffany, who according to these emails, had been sharing Brandon's bed for 18 months while Simone worked double shifts and tried to earn enough points to deserve her own husband's attention. The wife is so focused on her little nursing job, one email from Brandon read. Doesn't notice I'm barely home anymore. Perfect setup. Her income keeps things stable, and I get to actually enjoy my life with you. Simone stood abruptly, the chair rolling back and hitting the wall. The wife. He referred to her as the wife to his mistress. She pressed her palms to her eyes, refusing to cry. Not yet. Tears could come later. Right now she needed to think. She photographed the emails, documented everything. Then she carefully cleared the browser history and returned the laptop to exactly how she'd found it. Brandon was meticulous about his space. He'd notice if anything was displaced. When she walked to their bedroom, she saw it differently. The point system had trained her to see through Brandon's eyes, always judging, always scoring. Now she looked at the room and saw her erasure. His dark furniture. His preferred firm mattress that hurt her back. His television mounted where he wanted it. Even the photos on the dresser had been curated by him, only the ones where she looked, as he'd said, presentable. Simone opened her closet. Her nursing scrubs hung neatly in one section. The rest of the space held clothes Brandon had approved over the years. He'd slowly convinced her that her personal style was too casual or not sophisticated enough for my circle. She'd adapt it, trying to earn those green ratings on the appearance column. She pulled out an old box from the top shelf. Inside were clothes from before Brandon. A bright yellow dress she'd loved. Comfortable jeans and graphic tees. A purple jacket that made her feel confident. She'd donated these at Brandon's suggestion 2 years ago. But she'd kept them shoved in this box, some part of her unwilling to let go completely. Simone held the yellow dress against herself and looked in the mirror. She barely recognized the woman staring back. When had she become so pale and tired? When had her smile become this uncertain? The dress hung loose, she'd lost weight. The spreadsheet's fitness tracking had worked, apparently. She'd literally shrunk herself trying to earn love from a man keeping a performance tracker. She heard Brandon's car in the driveway. Quickly, she shoved the box back, straightened her face, and went downstairs. He came in with his briefcase, barely glancing at her. "Hey," he said, heading to the kitchen. "You eat yet?" "No, I waited for you." He paused, and she saw the calculation in his eyes, checking if this was point-worthy or point-deducting behavior. "That's sweet," he said finally, in a tone that suggested it was adequate but not exceptional. "But I grabbed something at the office. Maybe just make yourself a sandwich." The office? Where Tiffany worked? Simone nodded, her smile carefully neutral. "Sure. How was your day?" "Fine. The Henderson campaign is exhausting." He loosened his tie, the expensive one she'd bought him for their anniversary. The anniversary where he'd seemed disappointed by the restaurant she'd chosen, though he'd never said so directly. Just marked it in his spreadsheet, probably. "I'm heading up to work on some presentations. Try not to disturb me, I need to focus." "Of course." She watched him climb the stairs to his office. The office where he tracked her every move and planned his future with another woman. She waited until his door closed, then walked to the kitchen and poured herself a glass of water. Her hands were steady now. The shock had passed, leaving something colder and clearer. Simone pulled out her phone and searched for divorce lawyers. She'd never thought about divorce before tonight. Despite everything, she believed they could fix things, that if she just tried harder, earned more points, became the wife he wanted. Now she knew the truth. Brandon didn't want a wife. He wanted an employee he could rate and a source of stable income while he built a life with someone else. She found a lawyer with good reviews specializing in complex divorces. Dr. Janet Morrison. Available for consultation tomorrow during Simone's lunch break. She booked the appointment. Then she went upstairs to the guest room, the room she'd been sleeping in more often lately because Brandon claimed her restless sleeping affected his work performance. She pulled out a notebook and began writing down everything she could remember. Dates, conversations, financial details. The joint savings account she'd contributed to equally but rarely checked. The credit cards in both names. The house they'd bought together, though Brandon had handled all the paperwork. Hours passed. Brandon eventually came to the guest room doorway. Still up. Couldn't sleep. Try reading something boring. Medical journals, maybe. He said it like a joke, but she heard the dismissal. Her career was boring to him. "Don't forget you have that early shift tomorrow. You'll want to look rested." There it was. The casual reminder that her appearance mattered, that she was being evaluated. Simone nodded. "You're right. Good night." He left without kissing her. They hadn't kissed in months, she realized. Not really. Just brief pecks that felt obligatory. And she'd thought it was normal, thought all marriages went through phases. But it wasn't a phase. It was Brandon withdrawing his affection tokens, because she hadn't earned enough points. Simone lay in the guest bed, staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow she'd go to work, smile at patients, save lives perhaps. She was good at her job. Head nurse Patterson had mentioned a promotion recently. Simone had been too tired to think about it, too focused on trying to be better at home. Not anymore. She wasn't going to earn anything from Brandon anymore. No more points, no more ratings, no more shrinking herself to fit his twisted scoring system. She was going to take back her life and he would never see it coming. By the time she finally fell asleep, Simone had a plan. It would take time and careful execution. But she was a nurse. She knew how to follow treatment protocols. And this marriage was terminal. It was time to stop trying to save it and start saving herself. Simone sat in Dr. Janet Morrison's office during her lunch break, the lawyer's expression growing darker as she scrolled through the photographs Simone had provided. The office smelled like lavender and leather, calming scents that didn't match the storm building in Simone's chest. This spreadsheet alone could be considered emotional abuse, Dr. Morrison said finally. She was a woman in her 50s with silver hair and sharp eyes. And these emails confirm adultery. But what concerns me more is this part. She pointed to one of Brandon's messages to Tiffany. He's talking about timing the divorce for maximum financial benefit to himself. That suggests he's been planning this and potentially hiding assets. Simone's appetite, already minimal, disappeared entirely. What do you mean hiding assets? Look at this email from 6 months ago. He tells Tiffany he's restructuring to protect his interests. That's code for moving money where you can't access it during divorce proceedings. Dr. Morrison pulled out a legal pad. I need you to gather as much financial documentation as possible. Bank statements, tax returns, investment accounts, everything. We have joint accounts, Simone said. I deposit my paychecks and we split household expenses. But Brandon manages the investments. He said I should focus on my career and let him handle the complex financial stuff. Red flag. Dr. Morrison made a note. Does he have life insurance policies? Retirement accounts you're aware of? I think so. He mentioned investments, but I trusted him. Simone heard how naive she sounded. She was an intelligent woman, a skilled nurse who made life or death decisions daily. How had she been so blind in her own marriage? Dr. Morrison's expression softened. Financial manipulation often accompanies emotional abuse. He's conditioned you to defer to him. That's what abusers do, they make you doubt your own judgment. She leaned forward. Here's what we're going to do. First, you need to open your own bank account at a different institution. Transfer your next paycheck there. Don't tell him. Won't he notice? Probably. But by then you'll have started building independence. Second, I need you to collect every financial document in that house. Copy everything. Statements, passwords if you can find them, tax returns, property deeds, car titles. Everything. Dr. Morrison handed her a checklist. Third, do not let him know you're planning to leave. Men like Brandon can become unpredictable when they lose control. Simone took the checklist, her hands steady despite the fear curling in her stomach. How long do I have to keep pretending? As long as it takes to protect yourself. Usually 4 to 6 weeks to gather everything properly. Dr. Morrison studied her. Can you do that? Keep living with him, acting normal while you prepare? Simone thought about the spreadsheet. 2 years of living under constant evaluation without knowing it. She'd already been pretending she was happy, pretending the marriage was fine, pretending Brandon's coldness was just stress. What was a few more weeks? Yes, she said. I can do that. Good. One more thing. Dr. Morrison's voice turned grave. If at any point you feel unsafe, you leave immediately. Document what you can, but your safety comes first. Understood. Simone nodded. She didn't think Brandon was physically dangerous, but she'd also never thought he'd rate her like a performance review or plan a future with another woman while keeping her as financial backup. She clearly didn't know him at all. She returned to the hospital for her afternoon shift. The familiar chaos of the emergency department felt almost comforting. Here everything made sense. Medical protocols. Clear symptoms. Direct treatments. Not like her marriage, where everything had been twisted and hidden. Simone. Her colleague Brenda called from the nurse's station. Thank goodness you're back. We've got a multi-car accident coming in. Trauma team's already prepping. Simone slipped immediately into work mode. For the next 4 hours, she didn't think about Brandon or spreadsheets or divorce lawyers. She thought about blood pressure and 4 lines and keeping people alive. It was what she was good at. What she'd always been good at. When her shift ended at 7, she found a text from Brandon. Meeting ran late. Grab takeout on your way home. No please. No thank you. Just an instruction. Simone stopped at the Thai place near their house and ordered Brandon's usual. She also ordered something for herself, but found she could barely eat when she got home. Brandon was in his office, door closed. She knocked gently. Come in. He was at his computer, and she wondered if he was entering today's data into his twisted tracker. She set his food on the desk. He glanced at it, then at her. "You look tired," he said. It wasn't concern. It was an observation. A judgment. "Rough shift. Multi-car accident. Maybe you should request easier assignments. The exhaustion shows." He turned back to his screen, dismissing her. Simone left the office, anger simmering under her carefully controlled expression. The exhaustion shows. As if saving lives was an inconvenience that made her less attractive to him. She went to their bedroom, his bedroom really, and started looking through drawers. She needed to find financial documents without raising suspicion. In his nightstand, under some old magazines, she found a folder labeled Personal. Inside were investment statements she'd never seen. Accounts in only his name. Retirement funds with her listed as beneficiary, but only his name on the account. Statements showing regular transfers to a savings account she didn't recognize. Simone photographed everything with her phone, making sure to capture account numbers and dates. The statements showed Brandon had nearly $200,000 in accounts she'd never known about. Money he'd apparently been diverting from their joint savings for years. She found more in his closet, hidden in a box labeled Tax Documents 2019. Bank statements for the mysterious savings account. Regular deposits. And then, 6 months ago, a massive withdrawal. $50,000. Gone. Her phone buzzed. A text from Brandon's mother. "Haven't heard from you in ages, dear. Everything all right with you and Brandon?" Simone stared at the message. Brandon always made excuses when his mother invited them to dinner. Work obligations. Prior commitments. She'd assumed he was tired, that visiting family was low on his priority list. Now she wondered if he'd been deliberately isolating her from people who might notice something was wrong. She texted back, "Everything's fine. Just busy with work. Would love to see you soon." The response was immediate, "Wonderful. How about Sunday brunch? I'll make your favorite pancakes. I'll check with Brandon and let you know." But she already knew what she'd do. She'd go to that brunch with or without Brandon. She'd start reconnecting with the people who'd slowly disappeared from her life. Over the next week, Simone fell into a rhythm. She worked her hospital shifts, maintained her usual routine at home, and systematically documented everything. She found Brandon's laptop password written in a notebook in his desk, the arrogance of a man who'd never expected to be caught. She accessed his email account one night while he was in the shower and forwarded key messages to her own private email account. The messages to Tiffany were even worse than she'd initially seen. They'd been planning this for over a year. Brandon discussed phasing out the marriage, once he'd secured the promotion he was gunning for. He needed Simone's stable income and good credit score for another 6 months, maybe a year. Then he'd file for divorce, claim she'd been neglectful and absent due to her demanding work schedule, and try to get a favorable settlement. One email made Simone's blood run cold. Brandon to Tiffany, "The best part is she's so focused on trying to be better that she doesn't notice anything. I could probably move half our assets to offshore accounts and she'd just apologize for not being more attentive to household finances." She'd been right. He was hiding money. And planning to hide more. Simone met with Dr. Morrison again, bringing a USB drive full of evidence. The lawyer's approval was clear. "This is excellent work. With this documentation we can freeze assets and prevent him from hiding anything else. But we need to move carefully. I want a forensic accountant to review everything before we file." "How much longer?" Simone asked. 2 more weeks. I know it's hard, but we need to be thorough." Those 2 weeks felt like 2 years. Every morning, Simone woke up next to a man who'd systematically been dismantling their marriage while making her feel grateful for scraps of attention. Every evening she came home to his barely concealed contempt. But she was also changing. She'd opened her own bank account and redirected her direct deposit. She'd started going to lunch with Brenda and other nurses from the hospital, rebuilding friendships she'd let fade. She'd called Brandon's mother and arranged weekly phone calls, reconnecting with a woman who'd always been kind to her. And she'd stopped trying to earn points. When Brandon commented that dinner was bland, she said, "There's salt in the cabinet." When he sighed heavily because she was watching her preferred show, she didn't change the channel. When he mentioned she should exercise more, she ignored him completely. She watched him struggle with her indifference. He was used to her immediate compliance, her desperate attempts to please him. Now, when his manipulations didn't work, he didn't know what to do. He tried being extra cold, hoping to punish her into submission. She simply moved all her belongings to the guest room permanently. "What's going on with you?" he demanded one evening, following her upstairs. Nothing. I'm just tired. You've been distant. Difficult. He stood in the doorway of the guest room, his expression annoyed. I don't appreciate this attitude. Simone looked at him, really looked at him, and felt nothing. No love. No anger. Just a cold, clear understanding that she'd wasted 4 years of her life on a man who saw her as a resource to be managed. I'm sorry you feel that way, she said, using the same bland corporate speak he'd perfected. He blinked, thrown by her tone. We need to talk about your behavior. I have an early shift tomorrow. Can we discuss this another time? His jaw tightened. For a moment she saw real frustration in his eyes. He wasn't used to being dismissed. Fine. But this isn't over. He left and Simone locked the guest room door. She pulled out her phone and texted Dr. Morrison. I think he's getting suspicious. Can we move faster? The response came within minutes. Meet me tomorrow. We're ready to file. Simone set down her phone and looked around the guest room. Soon she wouldn't have to pretend anymore. Soon she'd be free. And Brandon would discover that the woman he'd spent 2 years raiding and controlling had been planning her own escape. He thought she was stupid. Weak. Easily manipulated. He was about to learn exactly how wrong he'd been. Simone stood at the nurse's station reviewing patient charts, when she realized she couldn't remember the last time Brandon had asked about her work. Not in the dismissive way he usually did, but genuinely asked. She tried to recall a single conversation where he'd shown interest in her patients, her challenges, her victories. Nothing came to mind. Earth to Simone? Brenda waved a hand in front of her face. You okay? You've been staring at that chart for 5 minutes. Sorry. Simone blinked and refocused. Just distracted. Everything all right at home? Brenda's concern was genuine. They'd been rebuilding their friendship over the past weeks, and Simone had carefully avoided discussing her marriage. But Brenda was perceptive. Not really, Simone admitted quietly. But it will be soon. Brenda glanced around to make sure no one was listening. If you need anything, a place to stay, someone to talk to, I'm here. Okay. The kindness made Simone's throat tight. When had she started accepting loneliness as normal? When had she convinced herself that Brandon's cold distance was just how marriages worked after a few years? Thank you, she managed. I really appreciate that. Her shift ended at 4. Simone drove to Dr. Morrison's office, her stomach churning with anticipation. Today was the day. After 3 weeks of gathering evidence and documentation, they were filing for divorce. Dr. Morrison had her signature ready on multiple documents. We're filing based on adultery and financial deception. I've included a motion to freeze all joint assets and a request for forensic accounting. He won't be able to move any money once these papers are served. When will that happen? Tomorrow afternoon. I've arranged for a process server to deliver the papers to his office. Dr. Morrison's smile was sharp. Public enough to ensure witnesses, private enough to avoid a scene. He'll be completely blindsided. Good. Simone signed her name on document after document. Each signature felt like breaking a chain. What happens after he's served? He'll have 30 days to respond. During that time, he'll likely try to contact you directly. Don't engage. All communication goes through me. If he shows up at your home, document it but don't interact. If he becomes threatening in any way, call the police immediately. Simone nodded. She'd already started planning her exit strategy. Tonight, while Brandon was supposedly working late, which she now knew meant he was with Tiffany, she'd pack her essentials and important documents. Tomorrow, after he was served, she'd leave the house for good. She returned home to find Brandon's car already in the driveway. Unusual. He rarely came home before 7. She walked in cautiously, finding him in the living room with his laptop. You're home early, she said. Had a headache. Decided to work from home. He didn't look up from his screen. There's nothing for dinner. You'll need to figure something out. Simone walked past him to the kitchen without responding. She made herself a sandwich and ate it standing at the counter, looking out the window at the backyard. They'd planted a garden together their first year of marriage. She'd loved working in it, growing tomatoes and herbs. But gradually, Brandon had taken it over, criticizing her methods, redoing her work. Eventually, she'd stopped trying. The garden had died last winter, and neither of them had replanted it. So many small erasures. So many moments where she'd stepped back, made herself smaller, disappeared a little more. She thought about the woman she'd been before Brandon. Confident. Opinionated. Comfortable in her own skin. That woman had dreams beyond just being someone's wife. She'd wanted to eventually become a nurse practitioner, Maybe open a community health clinic in an underserved area. I'm going out, Brandon announced suddenly. Don't wait up. Okay. He paused, seeming to expect more. When she offered nothing else, he grabbed his keys and left. Simone waited until his car disappeared down the street, then moved quickly. She'd already identified what she needed to take. Important documents, personal items, some clothes, her laptop. Everything fit into 2 large suitcases and a backpack. She loaded them into her car's trunk, then returned to the house to make it look undisturbed. Brandon was particular about order. He'd notice if things were out of place. She looked around the house one last time. She thought this was her home. But looking at it now, she saw nothing of herself anywhere. His furniture. His decorating choices. His life. She'd been living as a guest in her own marriage. Simone grabbed her phone and took photos of every room. Documentation in case Brandon tried to claim she'd damaged anything. Then she returned to the guest room and waited. He came home after midnight, not even trying to be quiet. She heard him in the kitchen, then his footsteps on the stairs. He didn't check on her. Why would he? She was just another item in his life that he managed and evaluated. Not a partner. Not a person he loved. Just a resource. Sleep came eventually. Simone dreamed about the yellow dress in the box at the top of her closet. In the dream she was wearing it, dancing in a sunny field somewhere far from here. She woke feeling more rested than she had in months. Her morning shift was routine. She helped deliver a baby, stabilized a cardiac patient, and assisted with a minor surgery. The ER was her second home and she was good at what she did. Better than good. Head nurse Patterson pulled her aside during lunch. I wanted to talk to you about that promotion, Patterson said. Director of Emergency Services. It would mean more administrative responsibility, but also better pay and a chance to shape how we run this department. You interested? 6 months ago, Simone would have hesitated. Would have wondered if the increased responsibility would earn her fewer points at home, if Brandon would resent her success. Now she didn't hesitate at all. Absolutely. I'm very interested. Patterson smiled. Good. I'll put your name forward. The board meets next month. Simone returned to her rounds feeling lighter. A promotion. Recognition for her actual work, not Brandon's twisted rating system. Her career had always been real, even when her marriage was a lie. At 2 p.m, her phone rang. Dr. Morrison. He's been served. The process server just confirmed delivery. How are you holding up? I'm okay. My shift ends in an hour. I'm going straight to the apartment we discussed. Perfect. Remember, no direct contact. He will try to call. He will likely show up at the house. Do not engage. I won't. Simone finished her shift and drove to a modest apartment complex 15 minutes from the hospital. Dr. Morrison had helped her find a short-term lease using her newly opened bank account. 1 bedroom, furnished, available immediately. It wasn't fancy, but it was hers. Only hers. She was unloading her suitcases when her phone started ringing. Brandon. She let it go to voicemail. It rang again immediately. Again she ignored it. By the time she'd finished bringing her things inside, she had 12 missed calls. Then the text started. What the hell is this? You had me served at work. In front of everyone. We need to talk. Now. This is ridiculous. You're overreacting. Answer your phone. I know you're reading these. Fine. Be childish. But we're not done talking about this. Simone blocked his number and sat down on the edge of her new bed. Her phone immediately rang again, Brandon calling from a different number. She blocked that too. Then she turned off her phone completely. The apartment was quiet. Strange. She'd grown so used to the tension of Brandon's presence, the constant monitoring, the weight of being perpetually evaluated. Now, sitting in this small space that was entirely her own, she felt dizzy with relief. There was a knock at the door. Simone's heart jumped, but when she checked the peephole, it was just a delivery person. She opened the door. Simone Williams? Yes. Delivery for you. The woman handed her a large basket. Have a great day. Simone carried the basket inside, confused. She hadn't ordered anything. Then she saw the card. Welcome to your new beginning. We're proud of you. Dr. Morrison and staff. The basket was full of practical items, dish soap, paper towels, coffee, snacks, a nice candle. Simple things, but the thoughtfulness brought tears to Simone's eyes. Strangers were kinder to her than her own husband had been. She made herself a cup of the coffee and sat by the window, watching the sun set over unfamiliar buildings. Tomorrow, Brandon would try to contact her again. He'd probably show up at the hospital or the house. Dr. Morrison had warned her that men like Brandon didn't handle loss of control well. They escalated. But Simone wasn't afraid. She was tired, yes. Sad, definitely. Mourning not the marriage she'd had, but the marriage she'd thought she had. The illusion she'd believed in while Brandon systematically took her apart piece by piece. But she wasn't weak. She wasn't stupid. And she wasn't going back. Her phone buzzed even though she'd turned it off. It had powered back on automatically. A text from an unknown number. I know you think you're being strong, but you need me. You'll realize that. And when you do, it will be too late. Simone screenshot the message and forwarded it to Dr. Morrison. Then she blocked the new number and powered the phone off again. Tomorrow she'd get a new number entirely. Tonight, she just wanted to sit in her own space and remember who she'd been before Brandon. Remember who she could be again. She pulled out her laptop and opened a document. At the top, she wrote, "Things I want." Then she started listing them. A community health clinic. A nurse practitioner license. Time with friends. Sunday brunches with Brandon's mother, who'd been kind to her even when Brandon wasn't. A vegetable garden. Travel to places she'd always wanted to see but Brandon dismissed as not worth the money. The list grew longer. Some items were practical, others were dreams she'd buried so deep she'd forgotten they existed. By the time she finished, 3 pages of wants and wishes stared back at her. 3 pages of the life she'd denied herself to be the wife Brandon wanted. Not anymore. Simone saved the document and titled it Recovery Plan. Because that's what this was. Not just divorce. Recovery. Reclaiming herself from the invisible woman she'd become. Finding Simone again, the one who'd existed before spreadsheets and point systems and constant evaluation. She was still there, somewhere under all the hurt and manipulation. Simone just had to dig her out. And she had all the time in the world now. Because the only person she needed to answer to, the only person she needed to please, the only person whose opinion mattered was herself. Brandon had made her invisible. Now she was going to become unforgettable. The hospital break room was quiet at 6 in the morning. Simone sat with her coffee, reviewing her notes before her shift. She'd been at the new apartment for 3 days, and the peace was still startling. No one critiquing her coffee temperature. No one rating her appearance. Just her, existing without evaluation. Simone. Brenda poked her head in. There's someone asking for you at the front desk. Says he's your husband. Simone's calm shattered. She'd known Brandon would find her eventually, but she'd hoped for more time. Tell him I'm with a patient and can't be disturbed. Then call security and let them know he's not authorized to be in the ER. Brenda's eyes widened but she nodded. You got it. Simone texted Dr. Morrison immediately. Brandon showed up at my workplace. Had security escort him out. Should I be worried? The response came fast. Normal escalation pattern. Document everything. I'm filing for a restraining order based on his threatening texts. Judge should approve it today. Simone's shift passed in a blur of patients and procedures, but part of her brain stayed alert, watching for Brandon. He didn't come back, but she found a dozen emails from him when she checked her phone at lunch. All variations of the same message. She was overreacting, they needed to talk, she was making a mistake, she'd regret this, he could make things difficult for her. She forwarded them all to Dr. Morrison and deleted them without responding. That afternoon, Dr. Morrison called. The restraining order is approved. Brandon is prohibited from contacting you directly, coming within 500 feet of your home or workplace, or accessing any of your personal accounts. He violated it this morning by showing up at the hospital, so if he tries again, call the police immediately. What about the financial investigation? The forensic accountant found what we suspected. Brandon has been systematically moving money to hidden accounts for the past 18 months. About $300,000 total, including the $50,000 he withdrew 6 months ago. That money went into an account under Tiffany's name. Simone's grip on her phone tightened. He gave her $50,000? Down payment on the apartment we found in the emails. It's in her name only, probably to hide it from divorce proceedings. But we've documented everything. He's not getting away with it. What happens now? Now we go aggressive. I'm filing a motion to force him to return all hidden assets to the marital estate, plus I'm pursuing charges for financial fraud and violation of fiduciary duty. He thought he could outsmart the system. He was wrong. Simone ended the call and sat in her car trying to process. $300,000. Money she'd helped earn through her own salary paying half the household bills while he saved his income. Money from their joint investments that she trusted him to manage. All hidden, all intended to leave her with as little as possible. Her phone rang. A known number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Simone? It's Diane. Brandon's mother. Please don't hang up. I won't. Hi, Diane. Brandon called me. He's very upset. He says you've left him and filed for divorce and that you're being unreasonable. Diane paused. But I've known my son his whole life and I've watched how he treats you. I wanted you to know that whatever you're doing, whatever you've decided, I support you. Simone's eyes burned. Thank you. That means more than you know. He always thought he was smarter than everyone else. Even as a boy, he had to win, had to control situations. I hoped marriage would soften him, but I saw how you changed around him over the years. Saw you get quieter, smaller. Diane's voice was sad. I should have said something. I'm sorry I didn't. You're saying something now. That's what matters. If you need anything at all, you call me. I mean it. You're still family to me no matter what happens with Brandon. After they hung up, Simone sat in the parking lot and cried. Not for her marriage, but for the kindness of a woman who chose to see the truth instead of defending her son's lies. The next week brought a cascade of legal actions. Brandon hired his own lawyer and filed a countersuit claiming Simone had abandoned the marriage and stolen joint assets by opening her own account. Dr. Morrison demolished that claim with documentation showing Simone had only transferred her own earnings and that Brandon had hidden hundreds of thousands without her knowledge. Then came the deposition. Simone sat across from Brandon and his lawyer, Dr. Morrison, beside her, and answered questions for 4 hours. Brandon's lawyer tried to paint her as a neglectful wife who prioritized her career over her marriage. Dr. Morrison countered with the spreadsheet. The lawyer's face went pale as Dr. Morrison pulled up the Simone performance tracker on her laptop and walked through every column, every rating, every degrading comment. This is what my client was living with. Not neglect from her, but systematic emotional abuse from Mr. Williams. He tracked and rated her like an employee, all while stealing marital assets and conducting an affair. Brandon's face flushed red. That was private. Nothing in a marriage is private during divorce proceedings, Mr. Williams. Especially not evidence of abuse. Dr. Morrison pulled up the emails next. And here we have your client discussing his affair, planning to phase out the marriage, and joking with his mistress about hiding money from his wife. The deposition ended shortly after. Brandon's lawyer looked shell-shocked. As they were leaving, Brandon tried to approach Simone. Dr. Morrison stepped between them. You're under a restraining order, Mr. Williams. I suggest you remember that. Brandon glared at Simone. This isn't over. Actually, Dr. Morrison said coolly, it very much is. See you in court. Simone walked to her car on shaking legs. She'd seen Brandon plenty of times during their marriage, but sitting across from him as adversaries was different. She'd seen the anger in his eyes, the entitlement. He genuinely believed he'd done nothing wrong. That she was the one causing problems by refusing to accept his treatment. That night, Simone met Brenda and 2 other nurses from the hospital for dinner. It was her first social outing since moving out, and she'd almost canceled. But Brenda had insisted. To new beginnings, Brenda raised her glass. To figuring out what we actually want, added Sharon, another nurse who'd gone through her own divorce 2 years ago. To getting out before it's too late, said Nicole. They clinked glasses and Simone felt something shift inside her. These women understood. They'd been through their own battles, their own recoveries. She wasn't alone in this. Can I ask you something? Simone looked at Sharon. How long did it take before you stopped feeling guilty? Sharon considered. About 6 months. My ex had me convinced everything was my fault. That if I'd just been better, he wouldn't have needed to control everything. It took time to realize that his behavior had nothing to do with my worth. I keep having these moments, Simone admitted, where I think maybe if I'd tried harder, done things differently. Stop. Nicole cut her off gently. That's his voice in your head. The real question is, what did he try? What did he do to make the marriage work? Simone thought about it. Nothing. He just expected me to meet his standards and got angry when I fell short. Exactly. A marriage takes 2 people trying. You were the only one trying. Brenda squeezed her hand. Don't let him take up any more space in your head than he already has. They were right. Simone had spent 4 years trying to save a marriage Brandon had been actively destroying. She'd blamed herself for his coldness, his distance, his criticism. But none of it had been her fault. She'd been dealing with an impossible situation, because there was no version of her that would ever satisfy a man who saw her as a resource rather than a partner. The next morning, Simone got a call from head nurse Patterson. The board approved your promotion. You're our new director of emergency services. Congratulations. Simone sat down hard on her couch. Thank you. When do I start? 2 weeks. That'll give you time to transition your current responsibilities and get trained on the administrative side. After the call, Simone looked around her small apartment. She'd been so focused on escaping Brandon that she hadn't thought much about what came after. But now, sitting here with a promotion and her freedom, she realized the after was just beginning. She pulled out her recovery plan document and added a new section, professional goals. Director was just the start. She could pursue her nurse practitioner license. Could start planning that community clinic she'd always dreamed about. Could build a career that mattered, that made a difference. Brandon had tried to make her small. But she was done shrinking. It was time to grow. Her phone buzzed. Dr. Morrison, good news. Brandon's company completed their internal investigation. He's been fired for embezzlement and fraud. The company is pressing criminal charges. His lawyer is trying to negotiate a plea deal. Simone read the message twice. Fired. Criminal charges. Everything Brandon had built was falling apart because he'd been too arrogant to think he'd ever face consequences. She didn't feel happy about it. Just a sense of justice. Of balance being restored. Brandon had treated people like resources, had stolen and manipulated and lied. Now he was learning that actions had consequences. She texted back, "What does this mean for the divorce?" "Means he'll have a harder time affording a good lawyer. Means the judge will look very unfavorably on his claims. Means we're in an excellent position to settle this quickly and favorably for you." Simone set down her phone and looked out her window. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of blue and purple. Beautiful. Come. Hers. She'd packed her bags and left. She'd gathered evidence and fought back. She'd refused to be invisible anymore. And now, slowly but surely, she was building something new. Something real. Something that belonged only to her. Brandon had told her she had to earn his affection. But she'd learned something more important. Her own affection for herself, her own respect, her own life, those weren't things to be earned. They were things to be claimed. And she was claiming them all. Simone's new office was smaller than she expected but filled with morning light. Director of Emergency Services. Her nameplate sat on the desk, official and real. She ran her fingers over the engraved letters and smiled. Settling in okay? Head Nurse Patterson stood in the doorway. Still feels surreal, Simone admitted. You earned this. Your clinical skills are excellent, but more than that, you care about making things better. That's what leadership requires. Patterson handed her a thick folder. These are the current protocols. I want your fresh perspective on what needs updating. Simone opened the folder, already spotting inefficiencies. The triage system could be streamlined. And we need better communication between ER and surgical teams. That's what I thought. You have 3 months to develop a proposal. Make it good. After Patterson left, Simone sat at her desk and let the reality sink in. She had authority now. Responsibility. People would look to her for decisions and guidance. Brandon had spent years convincing her she couldn't handle complex responsibilities, that she should just focus on her little nursing job, and let him handle the important thinking. He'd been wrong about everything. Her first week as director was chaos. She was learning administrative systems, attending budget meetings, reviewing staffing schedules, and still covering some clinical shifts. But the chaos felt purposeful. She was building something, contributing, making actual decisions that improved patient care. On Friday evening, she returned to her apartment exhausted but satisfied. Her phone showed a text from Dr. Morrison, settlement offer from Brandon's lawyer. Can you come in Monday to discuss? Simone responded that she'd be there. Then she ordered takeout from the Thai place she'd always liked but Brandon had dismissed as too cheap. She ate on her couch in comfortable clothes, watching a show Brandon would have criticized as mindless. Every small choice felt like reclaiming herself. Monday's meeting with Dr. Morrison revealed Brandon's desperation. His lawyer was proposing a quick settlement. Divide the remaining visible assets evenly, Brandon keeps his retirement accounts, Simone keeps hers, both walk away. It's a terrible offer, Dr. Morrison said flatly. He's trying to hide the $300,000 he stole. I've recommended we counter with full asset disclosure, return of all hidden funds, and an unequal division in your favor as compensation for his financial fraud. What are the chances he'll agree? Low. He's still in denial about how badly he screwed up. But once the criminal charges move forward, he'll get realistic quickly. He's looking at potential jail time for the embezzlement. Simone processed that. Jail time. The man she'd been married to might be incarcerated. It felt surreal, like she was discussing a stranger. In many ways she had been married to a stranger. She'd never really known Brandon at all. "Let's counter with your recommendation," she said. "Excellent. One more thing." Dr. Morrison pulled out another document. "Tiffany's lawyer contacted me. She wants to settle the civil suit we filed against her for receiving stolen marital assets." "What's she offering?" "Return of the $50,000 Brandon gave her for the apartment, plus another $20,000 in damages." She's scared. Lost her job, her reputation is destroyed, and she can't afford a prolonged legal battle. Simone thought about Tiffany. The woman who'd helped Brandon plan his exit strategy, who'd mocked her in those emails, who'd knowingly participated in destroying someone else's marriage. Part of Simone wanted to push for more, to make Tiffany hurt the way she'd been hurt. But a larger part just wanted it over. "Accept the offer," she said. "I want her out of my life completely." "Done. That $70,000 will go directly to you as separate property, not subject to division with Brandon." After the meeting, Simone walked through downtown, processing everything. In 3 months, she'd gone from a woman being rated on a spreadsheet to someone taking control of her entire life. She'd left an abusive marriage, gotten promoted, and was fighting for what she deserved. Her phone rang. Brandon's mother. "Diane, hi. I wanted to check on you. How are you holding up?" "Honestly? Better than I have in years." Simone found a bench and sat down. "I got promoted. I have my own place. I'm rebuilding my life." "Good. You deserve all of that and more." Diane paused. "I spoke with Brandon yesterday. He's not doing well. Lost his job, facing legal trouble. He asked if I could talk to you, convince you to drop everything." Simone's stomach tightened. "What did you tell him?" "I told him he made his choices and now he has to live with the consequences. I also told him I was disappointed in the man he'd become." Diane's voice was firm. "He's my son and I love him, but I won't support his behavior. What he did to you was wrong." "Thank you," Simone said quietly. "Don't thank me. Just keep moving forward. Build that life you deserve. And keep in touch, please. I'd like to stay part of your life if you're comfortable with that." After they hung up, Simone sat on the bench and watched people walk by. Couples, families, individuals rushing to wherever they needed to be. Everyone living their own complicated lives, carrying their own struggles and victories. She'd been so isolated during her marriage. Brandon had slowly cut her off from friends, family, activities she enjoyed. She'd let him, thinking it was normal, thinking she was just busy with work. But it had been another layer of control, making her dependent on him for social connection. Now she was reconnecting. Weekly calls with Diane. Regular dinners with her coworkers. She'd even called her college roommate, apologizing for falling out of touch. They talked for 2 hours, catching up on years of separation. Simone was rebuilding her support network, piece by piece. Finding the people who actually valued her, who wanted her in their lives because they enjoyed her company, not because she could serve some purpose. The next month blurred by. Simone presented her protocol improvements to the hospital board, and they approved funding for implementation. She hired 2 new nurses and restructured the shift schedules to reduce burnout. Patient satisfaction scores in the ER improved. Dr. Morrison called with updates on the divorce. Brandon's criminal case was moving forward. He'd agreed to a plea deal that involved restitution and probation, avoiding jail time but ensuring a criminal record. His career in marketing was effectively over. "He's finally ready to negotiate seriously," Dr. Morrison said. His lawyers submitted a new settlement proposal. Return of all hidden assets, 60-40 split in your favor. You keep the house if you want it. He takes full responsibility for the debt on the apartment he bought with Tiffany. What about spousal support? He's requesting it. Claims he needs time to rebuild his career. Dr. Morrison's tone was dry. "I shut that down immediately. Man commits fraud and adultery, and he wants you to fund his recovery? Absolutely not." Simone almost laughed. The audacity was stunning. "Reject the spousal support request. Accept the rest. You don't want the house?" Simone thought about that house. Every room filled with Brandon's presence, his choices, his control. "No. Let him deal with selling it. I want my share of the equity, but I don't want the actual house." "Smart. I'll have the papers drawn up. With any luck, we can finalize everything in the next 6 weeks." 6 weeks until she was officially free. Simone circled the date on her calendar. By then, winter would be starting. A new season for a new life. She spent her evenings planning. With her promotion salary and her settlement share, she could afford to start laying groundwork for her dream, a community health clinic. Nothing huge at first, Maybe just a small practice offering basic care to uninsured patients. But it was a start. She researched business plans, licensing requirements, potential locations. The work was challenging but exciting. For years, she'd poured energy into trying to save her marriage. Now she was pouring that same energy into building something real. One Saturday, Simone drove to her old house to collect some items she'd left behind. Brandon wasn't there. Dr. Morrison had arranged the visit to ensure they wouldn't overlap. She walked through rooms that felt like a museum of someone else's life. In the bedroom closet, she found the box of clothes she'd hidden away. The yellow dress, the purple jacket, the comfortable jeans. She pulled them out and carried them to her car. Then she went through the house systematically, taking anything that was actually hers. Books Brandon had deemed frivolous, art supplies she'd stopped using, photos of her family. By the time she finished, her car was full and the house looked even more impersonal than before. She stood in the living room one last time, saying goodbye to the illusion she'd believed in. Then she locked the door and drove away without looking back. That evening she tried on the yellow dress. It fit better than it had 2 years ago, her body healthier now that she wasn't starving herself to meet Brandon's appearance standards. She looked in the mirror and saw someone familiar. Not the exhausted, anxious woman from 6 months ago. Someone older but also somehow younger. Free. Simone took a photo of herself in the yellow dress and sent it to Brenda with the caption, "Found my old self. She's still here." Brenda responded immediately, "She looks happy. And beautiful. Drinks tomorrow to celebrate?" "Absolutely." Simone changed into comfortable clothes and curled up on her couch with a book. Her apartment was small but cozy. She decorated it with things she actually liked. Bright colors. Brandon's lawyer whispered urgently to him. Finally Brandon nodded. "Fine. Add the account." "Excellent." Dr. Morrison was already updating the settlement document. "That brings the total settlement to Ms. Williams to approximately $420,000 plus her personal retirement accounts and half the home equity. Mr. Williams will receive his remaining retirement funds and whatever's left after the home sale." It took another hour to finalize everything. Brandon signed the papers with shaking hands. Simone signed with steady ones. The mediator declared the settlement binding and congratulated them both on resolving their differences. Outside the building, Dr. Morrison turned to Simone with a satisfied smile. "That went better than expected." He tried to hide money again. Of course he did. Men like Brandon can't help themselves. They genuinely believe they're entitled to whatever they want. Dr. Morrison shook her head. "But we caught him and now he has no more cards to play. The divorce will be final in 60 days. After that, you never have to think about him again." Simone drove back to the hospital, processing everything. $420,000. Not life-changing money, but enough to give her options. Enough to start her clinic dream. Enough to build security she'd never had before. Her phone rang. A known number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. "Simone Williams?" "Yes. This is Detective Sarah Hughes with the Financial Crimes Unit. I'm calling about the criminal investigation into Brandon Williams. We'd like you to come in and give a statement about the financial fraud you experienced during your marriage." Simone pulled over. "Criminal investigation?" "Yes, ma'am. Mr. Williams's employer isn't the only victim of his fraud. The evidence you provided to your divorce lawyer shows he was also defrauding you through systematic asset concealment. We'd like to pursue charges." Yes, of course. When do you need me?" They scheduled an appointment for the following week. Simone sat in her parked car, hands gripping the steering wheel. Criminal charges. Brandon wasn't just losing the divorce. He was facing potential prosecution for what he'd done to her. She thought she'd feel triumphant. Instead she felt tired. So tired of everything revolving around Brandon and his choices and his consequences. She wanted to move on, but he kept pulling her back into his chaos. At work, she threw herself into a new project, redesigning the ER's patient flow system. It was technical and complex, requiring her to coordinate between multiple departments. The challenge was welcome. She needed something to occupy her mind besides the endless legal complications. Brenda found her in her office at 8 that evening, still working. "Go home," Brenda said. "You've been here since 6 this morning. Just finishing this proposal. The proposal will still be there tomorrow. You need to eat and sleep and be a human being." Brenda sat down across from her. "I know the divorce stuff is stressful. But you can't let it consume you." "I'm not. I'm ready for it to be over. 2 more months, right? Then it's done." Except now there's a criminal investigation. The detective wants me to testify about the financial fraud. Simone rubbed her eyes. I keep thinking I'm free of him, and then there's something else. That's because Brandon spent years making himself the center of your world. It takes time to fully untangle from that. Brenda's expression was sympathetic. But you are untangling. Every day a little more. Give yourself credit for that. Simone went home and tried to relax, but her mind kept spinning. She thought about the offshore account Brandon had tried to hide. $150,000 he'd funneled away over 3 years. Money that should have gone to their joint savings, their retirement, their future. Instead, he'd hidden it, planning for the day he'd leave her with nothing. The premeditation was what hurt most. This wasn't impulsive cheating or a sudden crisis. It was calculated betrayal stretching back years. Every kind word he'd spoken while transferring money. Every date night funded by her income while he squirreled away his own. Every time he'd criticized her spending while stealing from both of them. Her phone buzzed. Diane, heard about the settlement. Are you okay? Simone called her back. I'm okay. Tired but okay. Brandon called me today. Crying about how unfair everything is, how you've ruined his life. Diane sighed. I told him he ruined his own life with his choices. He didn't want to hear it. The desperation. The anger. The complete inability to accept responsibility for anything he'd done. She wondered if he'd ever loved her. If there had ever been genuine affection beneath the manipulation. Or if she'd just been a convenient source of income and domestic labor, easily replaceable once he'd found someone he actually wanted. It didn't matter, she decided. Whether he'd loved her or not didn't change what he'd done. Didn't change the spreadsheet or the hidden money or the affair. Love wasn't supposed to involve rating your partner's worth or planning your exit while pretending everything was fine. Simone's phone buzzed again. Dr. Morrison. Just got word that Brandon's company is suing him for the embezzled funds. Civil suit on top of the criminal charges. He's going to be dealing with legal consequences for years. Good, Simone thought, then felt guilty for thinking it. But only a little guilty. Brandon had systematically destroyed their marriage while stealing from her. He deserved every consequence coming his way. She looked around her apartment. Small but cozy. Hers. A space Brandon had never set foot in, never judged, never controlled. Every item in it chosen by her. Every decision made for her own comfort and happiness. This was what winning looked like. Not Brandon's suffering, but her freedom. Her ability to exist without constant evaluation. Her growing career and her rebuilding friendships and her plans for the future. Brandon's life was unraveling because he'd built it on lies and theft. Simone's life was coming together because she'd built it on honesty and hard work. The contrast was stark and satisfying. She pulled out her clinic business plan and added some notes. With the settlement money, she could start sooner than she'd thought. Maybe in a year she could open a small practice. 5 years from now it could be a full community health center. Dreams she'd abandoned because Brandon had dismissed them as unrealistic. Dreams she was reclaiming piece by piece. The divorce would be final in 2 months. The criminal investigation would take longer. But Simone didn't need those things to be over to start living. She was already living. Already free. Brandon had unraveled. But Simone? She was finally, fully becoming whole. Spring arrived with unexpected warmth. Simone stood in the empty storefront, envisioning her clinic. The space was small, just 2 examination rooms and a waiting area, but the location was perfect. In a neighborhood with limited healthcare access, near public transportation, affordable rent. It needs work, the landlord said. But if you sign a 3-year lease, I'll help with renovations. Simone walked through the space, imagining where everything would go. Reception desk here. Exam rooms there. A small office for administrative work. It was perfect. I'll take it, she said. The landlord looked surprised. Don't you want to think about it? I've been thinking about it for 6 years. I'm ready. She signed the lease that afternoon. Her hands trembled as she wrote her name, but it was excitement, not fear. She was really doing this. Building something entirely her own. Her divorce had been final for 3 weeks. Brandon had disappeared from her life completely, presumably dealing with his legal troubles. She'd heard through Diane that he'd moved in with his parents, unemployed and struggling to pay his mounting legal bills. Simone felt nothing when she heard the news. Not satisfaction, not pity. Just indifference. She'd moved on. The clinic consumed her attention. She spent evenings after her hospital shifts meeting with contractors, ordering medical supplies, working through licensing requirements. The process was complicated and exhausting, but every step forward felt like victory. Brenda helped her paint the waiting room a calm blue. "This is really happening," Brenda said, stepping back to admire their work. "You're really doing it." "I am." Simone felt a surge of pride. "It opens in 6 weeks. Small hours at first, just evenings and weekends while I keep my hospital position. But it's a start." "What are you calling it?" "New Horizons Community Health." Simone had spent weeks choosing the name. Helping people find new horizons for their health and well-being. Perfect. The transformation wasn't just professional. Simone had changed physically too. She'd started running again, something she'd loved in college but abandoned during her marriage. She'd cut her hair short, a style Brandon would have hated. She wore the clothes she actually liked, bright colors and comfortable fabrics. She looked healthy. Happy. One Saturday morning she ran into Tiffany at a coffee shop. Simone almost didn't recognize her. Tiffany looked worn, her previously polished appearance replaced with exhaustion and stress. Tiffany saw her and froze. Then she did something unexpected. She walked over. "Simone." "Hi." "Tiffany. I know I'm probably the last person you want to see." Tiffany's voice was quiet. "But I wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything. I knew you existed. I knew what Brandon was doing. I should have walked away but I didn't and I'm sorry." Simone studied her. Tiffany looked sincere, but Simone had learned not to trust appearances. "Okay. I lost my job. My apartment. Most of my friends. Brandon destroyed my life too, just differently." Tiffany swallowed hard. "I'm not asking for sympathy. I made my choices. I just wanted you to know I'm sorry for the hurt I caused." "Thank you for saying that," Simone said carefully. "I hope you figure things out." She left the coffee shop feeling strange. Part of her had wanted to be angry, to tell Tiffany exactly what she thought of her. But mostly she just felt tired of giving these people energy. Tiffany had made her choices. Brandon had made his. Both were dealing with consequences. Simone didn't need to add anything to that. She had better things to do with her time. The clinic's opening approached rapidly. Simone hired a part-time receptionist and a nurse practitioner to help with patient care. She set up a sliding scale payment system so uninsured patients could afford treatment. She partnered with a local pharmacy for discounted prescriptions. The night before opening day, she sat in her new clinic and felt overwhelming gratitude. 18 months ago, she'd been tracking points on a spreadsheet, trying to earn her own husband's attention. Now she was sitting in her own medical practice, preparing to serve her community. The transformation was complete. She wasn't the same woman who'd found that spreadsheet. She was someone stronger, clearer, more certain of her own worth. Opening day was chaos in the best way. Simone had advertised minimally, not sure what to expect. But the waiting room filled quickly with people needing care. An elderly man with uncontrolled diabetes. A young mother with a sick child. A teenager with a sports injury. People who'd been putting off medical care because they couldn't afford it, couldn't access it, had fallen through the cracks. Simone worked steadily through the evening, treating each patient with care and attention. She thought about Brandon's spreadsheet, how he'd reduced her worth to numbers and ratings. These patients weren't numbers. They were people with stories and struggles and hopes. And she could help them. By closing time, she was exhausted but exhilarated. The nurse practitioner she'd hired, Grace, smiled at her. "Good first day, boss." "Thanks. Same time next week?" "Wouldn't miss it." Simone locked up the clinic and sat in her car for a moment, letting the day wash over her. She'd done it. She'd built something real and meaningful. Something that would help people. Her phone rang. An unknown number, but she answered anyway. "Is this Simone Williams?" "Yes." "This is Detective Hughes. I wanted to update you on the Brandon Williams case. He's accepted a plea deal. Pleading guilty to 1 count of financial fraud, 5 years probation, full restitution to his former employer and to you." "To me?" "The hidden assets you uncovered during divorce proceedings constitute fraud. You're entitled to additional restitution beyond the civil settlement." The detective paused. "It'll take time to process, but you're looking at another $50,000, possibly more." Simone thanked her and ended the call. More money. Justice in a concrete form. But it felt almost anticlimactic. The money was nice, but it wasn't what mattered. What mattered was the clinic she just opened. The life she'd built. The freedom she'd claimed. That weekend she had dinner with Diane. Brandon's mother had remained a steady presence in Simone's life, calling regularly, offering support. "I heard about the clinic," Diane said over pasta. "I'm so proud of you." "Thank you. That means a lot." Brandon asked about you. Wanted to know if you were seeing anyone. Diane's expression was apologetic. I told him your life was none of his business anymore. What did he say? That he'd made mistakes. That he wished he could fix things. Diane shook her head. Too little, too late. And honestly, I don't think he means it. I think he's just miserable and nostalgic for when his life was easier. Probably, Simone agreed. He'll never change. Not really. He'll always be the same selfish, manipulative person he's always been. Diane reached across the table and squeezed Simone's hand. But you changed. You grew. You became the person you were always meant to be. Simone's eyes burned. I hope so. I know so. I've watched you bloom over the past year. It's been beautiful to witness. They talked about lighter things after that. Diane's garden. Simone's plans to expand clinic hours. A trip they were planning together to visit Diane's sister in Florida. Driving home that night, Simone reflected on relationships. She'd thought marriage to Brandon was forever. Thought blood family was the only family that mattered. But life was more complicated than that. Diane had chosen to maintain their relationship despite Brandon's wishes. Brenda and her other work friends had become found family. Grace from the clinic was already someone she trusted and relied on. Family was who showed up, who supported you, who celebrated your victories and helped through struggles. It wasn't about blood or legal ties. It was about genuine connection. Simone had lost a husband but gained so much more. A month into running the clinic, she met Gabriel. He came in as a walk-in patient, nothing serious, just needed antibiotics for an infected cut from a construction accident. He was tall, with kind eyes and an easy smile. First time here, he said as Simone cleaned the wound. Just moved to the neighborhood. Friend recommended your clinic. Welcome to the area. What do you do? General contractor. Renovations mostly. He winced as she applied antiseptic. Got this being careless with a saw. Could have been worse. They chatted easily while she worked. He asked thoughtful questions about the clinic, seemed genuinely interested in her mission. When she finished, he thanked her sincerely. You're good at this, he said. Made me feel comfortable. Not all doctors do that. I'm a nurse practitioner, not a doctor. But thank you. He smiled. Even better. Nurses actually listen. She saw him again 2 weeks later at a local farmer's market. He was buying vegetables and they struck up a conversation. He asked if she'd like to get coffee sometime. She surprised herself by saying yes. Their first date was simple. Coffee turned into a walk through the park, turned into dinner at a casual restaurant. Gabriel was easy to talk to. He listened when she spoke, asked follow-up questions, seemed genuinely interested in her life and opinions. Full disclosure, Simone said over dessert. I'm recently divorced. Like very recently. I'm not sure I'm ready for anything serious. That's fair, Gabriel said. How about we just see where things go? No pressure. No expectations. Just two people getting to know each other. That sounds perfect. They dated casually over the next few months. Gabriel respected her boundaries, never pushed for more than she was comfortable giving. He supported her clinic work, sometimes helping with minor repairs or improvements to the space. He made her laugh. Made her feel seen in a way Brandon never had. He's good people, Brenda said after meeting Gabriel at a clinic fundraiser. Keeper material. Maybe, Simone said. I'm not rushing anything. You don't have to. But don't let fear keep you from being happy either. Simone thought about that. She wasn't afraid of Gabriel. She was cautious, yes. Protective of the life she'd built. But Gabriel wasn't trying to insert himself into her life or take control. He was just existing alongside her, supporting without smothering. 6 months into dating, they took a weekend trip to the mountains. No phones, no work stress, just hiking and talking and being present. One evening, sitting by a fire, Gabriel turned to her. I want you to know something, he said. I'm not Brandon. I'm never going to rate you or judge you or try to change you. You're pretty much perfect as you are. I'm not perfect. You're perfectly yourself. That's what matters. He took her hand gently. I know you're still healing. I know trust is hard. I'm not going anywhere. Take all the time you need. Simone looked at him, at his open, honest face, and felt something shift. Not love, not yet. But the beginning of it. The possibility of it. Thank you, she whispered. She didn't know where things with Gabriel would go. But for the first time in years she was excited to find out. Excited about the future rather than anxious about it. Her transformation was complete. She'd gone from a woman earning points on a spreadsheet to someone running her own clinic and building genuine relationships. She'd reclaimed herself, her identity, her worth. Brandon had tried to make her small. Instead, she'd become unstoppable. And she was just getting started. The email arrived on a Tuesday morning. Simone was at the hospital reviewing patient charts before her shift when she saw the subject line, Final Restitution Williams Case. She opened it to find a letter from the prosecutor's office. Brandon had made his final payment. The additional $50,000 Detective Hughes had mentioned, plus accumulated interest. The money would be transferred to her account within 2 business days. Simone closed her laptop and sat back in her chair. It was over. Truly over. No more court dates, no more legal communications, no more connections to Brandon at all. The divorce was final. The criminal case was settled. She was completely, totally free. Good news? Brenda asked, passing by with a coffee. The best. Brandon's finally, officially, permanently out of my life. Hallelujah. Drinks after shift to celebrate? Can't tonight. I have clinic. But this weekend? You're on. Simone's life had developed a comfortable rhythm. Hospital work 3 days a week. Clinic work 3 evenings and Saturdays. 1 full day off for rest and personal time. It was busy but fulfilling, every piece of her schedule chosen by her for reasons that mattered to her. The clinic had grown faster than expected. She'd hired 2 more nurses and extended hours. They were seeing nearly 100 patients a week now, providing care to people who'd had nowhere else to turn. The work was challenging but deeply satisfying. Gabriel had become a steady presence in her life. They'd been dating for almost a year now, taking things slowly but surely. He'd met Diane, who'd immediately loved him. He'd helped her expand the clinic's waiting room when they outgrew the original space. He was patient, kind, and genuine in ways that made Brandon seem like a cardboard cutout of a person in retrospect. I got some news today, Simone told him over dinner that evening. Brandon finished his restitution payments. I'm getting an additional $50,000. Gabriel whistled. That's great. What will you do with it? Probably invest some, put the rest toward clinic expansion. I've been thinking about adding a dental wing. So many of our patients have untreated dental issues. That's amazing. Gabriel reached across the table and squeezed her hand. You're amazing. She smiled. I'm just trying to help people. You're doing way more than that. You're giving people hope and dignity and quality care. That's huge. They talked about other things after that, his current renovation project, her plans to finally take a vacation, a concert they both wanted to attend. Easy conversation. Comfortable silence. The kind of relationship where both people could simply exist without performance or pretense. Later that week, Simone got a call from head nurse Patterson. Can you come to my office? Simone's stomach dropped. That tone usually meant something serious. She made her way to Patterson's office, mentally reviewing recent cases for anything that might have gone wrong. Patterson was smiling when Simone entered. Relax. It's good news. The board wants to offer you a hospital partnership position. Partnership. Director of Community Health Initiatives. You'd oversee not just the ER but also develop programs connecting the hospital with community clinics. Basically, they want to replicate what you've done with your own clinic across the entire healthcare network. Simone sat down hard. That's a huge job. It is. But you've proven you can do it. You've run the ER efficiently, you've built a successful community clinic, and you have the vision for how healthcare should work. The board is impressed. Patterson leaned forward. It would mean giving up some clinical work in favor of administrative and strategic planning. But it would also mean real influence over how care is delivered in this city. Can I think about it? Of course. Take a week. But Simone? This is a big opportunity. Don't let fear hold you back. Simone left the meeting feeling dizzy. 2 years ago, she'd been trying to earn points for making coffee correctly. Now she was being offered a position that could reshape healthcare delivery for an entire community. She called Diane that evening. I got a job offer today. Hospital partnership, overseeing community health initiatives. Simone, that's wonderful. Are you going to take it? I don't know. It's a lot of responsibility. You've been handling enormous responsibility for years. This is just making it official. Diane's voice was warm. I'm so proud of you. You've built an incredible life. Thanks to you partially. Your support meant everything. Nonsense. You did this yourself. I just had the good sense to stay in your life. Diane paused. Brandon called again yesterday. Still complaining about how unfair everything is. How is he doing? Miserable. Working some low-level marketing job, living with his parents, still bitter about losing everything. Diane sighed. I tried to talk to him about accepting responsibility moving forward. He wasn't interested. just kept saying you destroyed his life. Simone felt a flicker of the old guilt, then pushed it away. I didn't destroy his life. He did that himself. Exactly. And I told him so. Diane's tone turned firm. You are not responsible for his consequences. Remember that. After they hung up, Simone thought about Brandon. She rarely did anymore, her life too full of better things to spend mental energy on him. But she wondered if he'd learned anything. If the consequences had changed him at all. Probably not. Some people never learned. Never grew. Never accepted that their actions created their outcomes. She'd been one of those people once in a different way. Accepting Brandon's treatment, making excuses, trying to earn something that was never really on offer. But she'd learned. She'd grown. She'd changed. That weekend, she discussed the job offer with Gabriel. They were hiking a trail near the city, the spring air warm and bright. What's holding you back? Gabriel asked. It's so much responsibility. What if I fail? What if you succeed? He stopped walking and turned to face her. Simone, you've succeeded at everything you've tried in the past 2 years. Built a clinic from nothing. Transformed the year. Left an abusive marriage and rebuilt your entire life. Why would this be different? Because it's bigger. So, you're bigger too. You've grown. You're not the same person who was married to Brandon, trying to please someone who couldn't be pleased. You're someone who knows her worth and her capabilities. Gabriel smiled. Take the job. You'll be brilliant at it. She thought about his words on the hike back. He was right. She had changed. She was capable of more than she'd ever believed while married to Brandon. That was what abuse did. It made you doubt yourself so thoroughly that even after escaping, the doubt lingered. But she was done doubting. Done shrinking. Done limiting herself because of fear. Monday morning, she walked into Patterson's office. I'll take the partnership position. Patterson grinned. Excellent. You start in 3 months. That'll give you time to transition your current responsibilities and set up the community clinic to run without you being there daily. The next months were a whirlwind. Simone trained Grace to take over day-to-day clinic operations. She developed proposals for the hospital board outlining how to expand community health programs. She worked with Gabriel to renovate a larger space for the clinic to accommodate growth. She also started therapy. Something she'd been putting off, but Dr. Morrison had recommended it and Simone finally felt ready. Talking about her marriage, about the abuse she'd experienced and how it had shaped her, was painful but necessary. Her therapist helped her process the guilt, the shame, the lingering belief that she'd somehow caused Brandon's behavior. You didn't, her therapist said firmly. You were in an abusive relationship with someone who systematically tore you down. None of that was your fault. But I stayed. I tried to make it work even when it was clearly broken. That's what abuse does. It makes you believe you can fix it if you just try harder. But there was nothing to fix. Brandon didn't want a partner. He wanted control. You couldn't have changed that no matter what you did. Simone worked through the grief of losing time to Brandon's manipulation. 4 years of her life she couldn't get back. But she was also learning to appreciate what she'd gained. Strength, resilience, clarity about what she wanted and deserved. She was healing. Truly healing. One evening, she was locking up the clinic when a woman approached her. Young, maybe mid-20s, nervous. Are you Simone Williams? Yes. Can I help you? I'm Amanda. I saw an article about you and your clinic. About leaving an abusive marriage and building this place. She twisted her hands together. I'm in a similar situation. My boyfriend tracks everything I do, controls my money, makes me feel like I'm crazy for being upset. I don't know how to leave. Simone's heart ached. She saw herself in this young woman's eyes. The fear. The confusion. The desperate hope that someone would validate her reality. Come inside, Simone said gently. Let's talk. They spent an hour discussing Amanda's situation. Simone shared resources, connected her with a domestic violence counselor, helped her develop a safety plan. She gave Amanda her personal number. If you need anything, call me. Day or night. Okay. Amanda left looking lighter, less alone. Simone sat in the empty clinic and cried. Not from sadness, but from recognition. She'd needed someone to tell her it wasn't her fault, that she deserved better, that leaving was possible. Amanda needed that too. This was why she'd built the clinic. Not just for physical health, but for all the ways people needed healing. Her phone buzzed. Gabriel, how was your day? She smiled and texted back. Hard but good. Really good. That night, she updated her clinic mission statement to include mental health support and resources for people leaving abusive situations. It was a small addition, but it felt significant. She was taking her pain and turning it into purpose. Brandon had tried to destroy her. Instead, he'd forged her into something stronger. Someone who could help others find their own strength. The consequences for Brandon had been significant. Criminal record, damaged career, destroyed reputation, years of probation and restitution. But the real consequence was that he'd created Simone as she was now. Independent, confident, purposeful. He'd meant to break her and had instead broken her free. And that was the best revenge of all. Not his suffering, but her thriving. Not his loss, but her gain. Not his defeat, but her victory. She was no longer the woman who'd needed to earn affection. She was the woman who'd learned she'd always been enough. And that made all the difference. The community center was packed. Simone stood at the podium, looking out at faces of all ages. She'd been invited to speak about her journey, from nurse to director to community health advocate. The organizer had called her story inspirational. Simone just thought of it as survival. 2 years ago, she began, I was living a life that looked perfect from the outside. Good job, nice house, stable marriage. But inside I was disappearing. I was being rated and evaluated and judged every single day by someone who was supposed to love me unconditionally. And I didn't even realize it was abuse because it was so subtle, so systematic. She told them about finding the spreadsheet. About discovering the affair. About the hard work of gathering evidence and planning her exit. She talked about the divorce and the criminal case and the slow process of rebuilding. But mostly, she said, I want to talk about what came after. Because leaving was hard, but building a new life was harder in different ways. I had to relearn who I was without someone telling me who to be. I had to remember my dreams, my goals, my value. I had to trust myself again. She described starting the clinic, the joy and terror of opening her own business. She talked about reconnecting with friends, building new relationships, learning to date again with wisdom instead of desperation. The best revenge, she concluded, isn't making the person who hurt you suffer. It's building a life so good you forget to care about them at all. It's becoming the person you were always meant to be. The audience applauded. Afterward, multiple women approached her, sharing their own stories. Some were still trapped in bad marriages. Some had recently left. All of them needed to hear that survival was possible, that life could be better on the other side of leaving. Simone exchanged numbers with several women, directed them to resources, offered whatever help she could. This was what purpose looked like. Taking her pain and transforming it into something that helped others. She met Gabriel for dinner after the event. He was waiting at their favorite restaurant, a small Italian place with excellent pasta and dim lighting. How'd it go? He asked as she slid into the booth across from him. Overwhelming. Good. Set. Hopeful. Simone smiled. All of it at once. That's heavy. You okay? Yeah. It's just, seeing how many women are going through what I went through. It's heartbreaking. But you're helping them. Giving them hope and practical tools. Gabriel reached across the table and took her hand. That matters. They ordered wine and talked about lighter things. His current project renovating a historic building. Her plans for the hospital partnership position she'd be starting in a month. Their upcoming vacation to the coast. I've been thinking, Gabriel said carefully. About us. About the future. Simone's stomach tightened. They'd been dating for over a year now, but they deliberately kept things casual. No talk of moving in together or long-term plans. Just existing in the present, enjoying each other's company without pressure. I love what we have, Gabriel continued. I love the pace we're going at. I'm not trying to rush anything. He paused. But I also want you to know I'm serious about you. About us. When you're ready to talk about future things, living together, real commitment, whatever that looks like, I'm ready too. No pressure. Just wanted you to know. Simone studied him. His expression was open, honest, patient. Not demanding anything, just offering himself. Completely different from Brandon, who'd always been pushing, controlling, manipulating. I love what we have too, she said slowly. And I think I'm ready to start imagining a future. Not rushing, but maybe taking the next step. Gabriel smiled. Yeah. Let's talk about it. About what we both want and how to build it together. They spent the rest of dinner discussing possibilities. Gabriel was renovating a house he'd bought as an investment. Maybe Simone could move in once it was finished, and they could make it theirs together. Maybe they'd keep separate spaces for now but spend more nights together. Maybe they'd just keep doing what they were doing until something felt right. The conversation was easy, collaborative. Two people figuring out how to merge their lives without anyone losing themselves. It felt healthy in a way Simone's marriage never had. That night, Lying in bed in her apartment, she thought about Brandon. Wondered what he was doing, if he was happy, if he'd learned anything. Then she deliberately stopped wondering. He was her past. Gabriel was potentially her future. And she was fully, completely her present. The next morning she got a call from Detective Hughes. Thought you'd want to know, Brandon Williams was arrested again last night. Simone's peaceful morning shattered. For what? Violating his probation. He was caught gambling, which was explicitly prohibited in his plea deal. He'd run up about $30,000 in gambling debts. Oh my God. He's being held without bail pending a hearing. Judge is likely to revoke probation and impose the original suspended sentence. He's looking at 3 years in prison. After the call, Simone sat on her couch feeling strange. Sad but also vindicated. Brandon hadn't learned anything. Hadn't changed. He was still making the same destructive choices, still believing rules didn't apply to him. She called Diane. Did you hear about Brandon? Yes. I'm on my way to see him now. Diane sounded exhausted. I've bailed him out so many times. But I can't fix this. I can't save him from himself. I'm sorry. Don't be. This isn't your fault. This isn't anyone's fault except Brandon's. Diane was quiet for a moment. I love my son. But I don't like who he is. I've realized I raised a narcissist and I can't undo that. You tried. You did your best. My best wasn't enough. But you know what? You did something I couldn't do. You left. You refused to keep enabling him. That took courage I never had. After they hung up, Simone tried to return to her normal routine. Clinic work, hospital shifts, planning for her new position. But part of her mind kept drifting to Brandon in jail. She felt no satisfaction in it. Just a sad acceptance that some people never change no matter how many chances they got. A week later she attended Brandon's sentencing hearing. She didn't have to go, but something made her feel she should witness the end of this chapter. Brandon looked terrible. Thinner, grayer, defeated. His lawyer argued for leniency, citing mental health issues and gambling addiction. The prosecutor countered with Brandon's pattern of deception and refusal to accept responsibility. The judge was unmoved. Mr. Williams, you've been given multiple opportunities to demonstrate rehabilitation. You've failed at every turn. You've shown consistent disregard for court orders, for your victims, and for the severity of your actions. I'm revoking your probation and imposing the suspended sentence of 3 years in state prison. Brandon's face crumpled. He tried to look back at his mother in the gallery, but the bailiff was already leading him away. Diane covered her face with her hands. Simone left the courthouse feeling hollow. 3 years in prison. Brandon's life completely destroyed. And for what? He could have accepted the probation, gotten help, changed his behavior. Instead, he doubled down on the same patterns that had ruined everything. She thought about Amanda, the young woman who'd approached her at the clinic. Amanda was in the process of leaving her abusive boyfriend now, slowly building her exit plan with help from counselors and support groups. She was going to make it. She was going to escape and build a new life. That was the difference. Amanda was willing to change, to do the hard work of healing. Brandon never had been. He'd wanted everything to be easy, wanted to face no consequences, wanted the world to bend to his will. Simone drove to the clinic and threw herself into work. She treated patients, updated charts, trained her staff. The familiar rhythms of care and healing centered her. This was what mattered. Not Brandon's sentencing or his continued downward spiral. This, helping people. Making a difference. Gabriel showed up at the clinic near closing time with takeout. Heard about the sentencing. Thought you might need a friend. They ate in her office, Gabriel not pushing her to talk, just being present. Finally, Simone said, I don't feel good about him going to prison. I don't feel bad either. I just feel done. Like this was the final chapter closing. That makes sense. He could have changed. At any point he could have chosen differently. But he didn't. Simone shook her head. I can't save him. I can't fix him. I can only live my own life. And you're doing that beautifully, Gabriel said quietly. She smiled at him. We're doing that beautifully. Building something good together. The next morning, Simone met with the hospital board to present her strategic plan for community health initiatives. She outlined partnerships with local clinics, mobile health units for underserved areas, integrated mental health services, and educational programs for disease prevention. The board asked tough questions. She answered them confidently, her vision clear and detailed. She knew this work. She'd lived it. She understood what communities needed because she'd been serving them directly. At the end of her presentation, the board chair smiled. Excellent work, Director Williams. We're excited to have you lead this initiative. Director Williams. Her new title, her new role, her new chapter. Simone walked out of that meeting feeling powerful in the best way. Not power over people, but power to create change. To make systems better. To help people access care. She called Brenda. I just finished my board presentation. How'd it go? Perfectly. They loved it. Of course they did. You're brilliant. Brenda paused. We should celebrate. Dinner this weekend? Bring Gabriel. Sounds perfect. That evening, Simone sat on her balcony watching the sunset. Her phone buzzed with messages. Grace updating her on clinic numbers. Diane checking in. Amanda sending a photo of her new apartment, finally free from her abusive boyfriend. Gabriel asking what she wanted for dinner. Her life was full, rich, meaningful, built entirely on her own terms with people who valued and respected her. Brandon was in prison. Tiffany had moved away, her reputation destroyed. Both had lost everything through their own choices. But Simone? She'd lost one life and built a better one. Lost a marriage and found herself. Lost illusions and gained truth. She thought about the woman who'd found that spreadsheet 2 years ago. Scared, broken, uncertain. That woman had been strong enough to leave. Strong enough to fight. Strong enough to rebuild. Simone wished she could go back and tell that woman it would be okay. Better than okay. That leaving was just the beginning. That the hard work of healing would be worth it. That life on the other side was better than she could imagine. But she couldn't go back. She could only move forward. Into her new position, her new relationship, her new life. Into the beginning she'd earned not through some twisted point system, but through courage, perseverance, and refusing to accept less than she deserved. The sunset painted the sky in shades of blue and purple. Beautiful. Peaceful. Free. Just like her. The community health center's grand opening was everything Simone had dreamed of. Not her small clinic anymore, but a comprehensive facility with medical, dental, and mental health services. 3 exam rooms had grown to 10. 1 nurse practitioner had become a staff of 15. Simone stood at the entrance, greeting patients and donors as they arrived for the celebration. 2 years of planning had led to this moment. Hospital partnership funding combined with grants and private donations had made it possible. Quite a turnout, Gabriel said, sliding up beside her. He'd been instrumental in the renovation, transforming an old warehouse into a bright, welcoming space. Can't believe we pulled it off. I can. You're unstoppable when you set your mind to something. He kissed her cheek. Proud of you. The afternoon was filled with tours and speeches. The hospital board chair praised Simone's vision. The mayor talked about healthcare access as a human right. Patients shared stories of how the clinic had changed their lives. When it was Simone's turn to speak, she looked out at the crowd and saw faces she recognized. Brenda and the hospital nursing staff. Grace and the clinic team. Diane, who'd become more family than Brandon ever was. Amanda, now working as a medical assistant after escaping her abusive relationship and going back to school. 3 years ago, Simone said, I didn't believe I was capable of anything like this. I was living small, making myself smaller, trying to earn basic dignity from someone who saw me as a resource rather than a person. But something shifted. I found evidence of betrayal that forced me to see my marriage clearly. And I made a choice. Not just to leave, but to become who I was always meant to be. She talked about the importance of community health, of treating the whole person, of creating systems that serve people rather than excluding them. She talked about second chances and new beginnings and the courage it takes to change your life. This center exists because I learned something important, she concluded. Your worth isn't determined by someone else's evaluation. It's inherent. It exists whether anyone acknowledges it or not. And when you believe that, when you truly internalize it, you become capable of anything. The crowd applauded. Afterward, Amanda hugged her tightly. Thank you. For everything. For showing me leaving was possible. You did the hard work. I just pointed toward resources. You did more than that. You believed me when I thought I was crazy. You validated my reality. Amanda pulled back, smiling. I'm applying to nursing school. Want to do what you do, help people the way you helped me. Simone's eyes burned. You'll be amazing at it. The celebration continued into the evening. Music, food, people connecting with each other. Simone moved through the crowd, thanking donors and staff, greeting patients both old and new. She felt Gabriel's presence nearby, supportive but not hovering. He understood she needed to be fully present for this. Finally, as things were winding down, she found a quiet corner and just breathed. She'd done it. Actually built something significant. Something that would outlast her, that would continue helping people for years to come. Big day, Diane said, joining her with 2 glasses of champagne. Bigger than you probably realize. I'm starting to realize. Brandon called me yesterday. From prison. Diane's expression was complicated. Wanted me to tell you he's proud of you. That he's sorry for everything. Simone accepted one of the champagne glasses. Do you think he means it? Honestly? I think he's learned to say what people want to hear. Whether he's actually changed. Diane shrugged. He gets out in 18 months. I suppose we'll see. I hope he has changed. For his sake. Simone meant it. She didn't want Brandon's life to be permanently ruined. She just wanted him out of hers. But it's not my concern anymore. No, it's not. Diane clinked her glass against Simone's. You're free of him. Living the life you deserve. That's what matters. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the celebration wind down. Simone thought about the journey that had brought her here. The pain, the fear, the hard work of rebuilding. Every difficult moment had been worth it. Later that evening, Gabriel drove her home. Not to her apartment anymore, but to the house they'd renovated together. A real home chosen by both of them, decorated with pieces from both their lives. They'd moved in together 6 months ago, taking that next step in their relationship. Exhausted? Gabriel asked as they pulled into the driveway. Completely. But in a good way. Inside, he made her tea while she collapsed on the couch. Their couch, not his couch or her couch. That word still felt special. Ours. I have something for you, Gabriel said, sitting beside her. He pulled out a small box. Simone's heart jumped. Gabriel? Open it. Inside was a key. Not a jewelry box, a key. She looked at him, confused. It's the key to the workshop behind the house, he explained. I've been renovating it. Thought you could use it as a home office. Space to work on your community health initiatives without bringing stress into our living space. Separate but connected, you know? Simone felt tears building. Not an engagement ring, which honestly she wasn't ready for yet. But something thoughtful and practical and perfectly suited to who she actually was. A space of her own. Recognition that she needed both togetherness and independence. It's perfect, she whispered. You're perfect. I'm really not. But I try to listen. Try to understand what you need. Gabriel tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. You've taught me so much about what partnership should look like. Supportive. Real. They kissed, and Simone felt gratitude wash over her. Not just for Gabriel, but for everything. For having the courage to leave. For building a career she loved. For helping Amanda and countless others. For finding genuine connection instead of performing for approval. The next morning, she visited the workshop Gabriel had renovated. It was beautiful. Big windows, built-in bookshelves, a desk facing the garden. Space to think and plan and dream. Her space. She set up her laptop and opened a new document. 5-year plan, she titled it. Then she started listing goals. Expand the community health center to 3 locations. Complete her doctorate in nursing practice. Write a book about surviving abuse and rebuilding. Train other nurses in trauma-informed care. Maybe, eventually, run for local office to influence healthcare policy. Ambitious goals. But she'd learned she was capable of ambition. Capable of building things that mattered. Capable of changing not just her own life, but her entire community. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, old habits dying hard. But she did. Hello? Simone? This is Rachel. We met at your speaking event last month. You gave me resources for leaving my marriage. I remember. How are you? I left. 2 weeks ago. I packed a bag and left while he was at work. Rachel's voice shook. I'm terrified. But I did it. I wanted to thank you for making me believe I could. Simone spent 20 minutes on the phone with Rachel, offering encouragement and practical advice. After they hung up, she added something to her 5-year plan. Start a formal support network for people leaving abusive relationships. Monthly meetings, mentorship program, resource sharing. This was what her life was now. Not earning points or seeking approval, but using her experience and strength to help others find their own. She worked in the workshop for hours, planning and dreaming. When she emerged, Gabriel was in the garden, planting vegetables. He looked up and smiled. How's the new space? Perfect. Thank you again. Come help me plant? These tomatoes won't plant themselves. Simone joined him in the garden. They worked side by side in comfortable silence, hands in the soil, sun on their backs. Simple domestic happiness. No drama, no walking on eggshells, No constantly monitoring another person's mood to predict danger. Just peace. Partnership. Love that didn't need to be earned but was freely given. That evening they had dinner with Diane. She was moving to Florida next month to be near her sister, putting physical distance between herself and Brandon's chaos. "I'll visit," Simone promised. "And you're always welcome here." "I know. You've been more of a daughter to me these past years than Brandon has been a son." Diane squeezed her hand. "I'm grateful we stayed connected." "Me too." They talked late into the night. About the past but mostly about the future. Diane's plans for retirement. Simone's expanding healthcare initiatives. Gabriel's business growth. Connections maintained by choice rather than obligation. Walking home under streetlights, Gabriel took Simone's hand. "Happy?" She thought about it. Really thought about it. "Yes. Actually, genuinely happy." "Good. You deserve it." "We both do." At home, Simone stood in their bedroom, not his or hers but truly theirs, and looked at herself in the mirror. She saw a woman in her early 30s, strong and clear-eyed. Marks of her journey showed in subtle ways. A steadiness in her posture, a calmness in her expression, a confidence that came from knowing her own worth. She thought about the woman who'd found that spreadsheet 3 years ago. Broken but not destroyed. Scared but brave enough to leave. That woman had been the seed of who she was now. Brandon had tried to rate her, reduce her, control her. But he'd failed. She'd rated herself and found herself valuable. She'd defined herself on her own terms. She'd taken control of her own life. And now she was living proof that transformation was possible. That you could leave darkness and build light. That the life you deserved was the life you created. Her phone showed a text from Amanda. "Just got accepted to nursing school. Starting in the fall." Simone smiled and texted back, "Congratulations. So proud of you." The ripple effects kept spreading. She'd saved herself, which had helped her save Amanda, which would help Amanda eventually save others. That was how change happened. One person at a time, one brave choice at a time, one new beginning at a time. She climbed into bed beside Gabriel. He put his book down and pulled her close. "See? Comfortable." "Oh. Love you," he said simply. "Love you too." They'd said it for the first time 3 months ago. Neither had rushed it. Both had meant it. Love that was patient and honest and built on mutual respect. The kind of love she'd thought only existed in movies. Simone drifted off to sleep thinking about the community health center's expansion plans, about Rachel finding her courage, about Amanda starting nursing school, about all the lives intersecting and improving because she'd had the courage to leave a man who told her she had to earn his affection. She'd left. She'd built something beautiful from the rubble of her broken marriage. She'd become someone she was proud to be. And that was better than any revenge could ever be. Because she hadn't destroyed Brandon's life, she'd simply stopped letting him destroy hers. And in doing so, she'd created something magnificent. The life she deserved. The life she'd earned not through points or ratings or trying to please the unpleasable, but through courage and resilience and refusing to accept anything less than genuine partnership and respect. Brandon had told her to earn his affection. Instead, she'd earned her own respect. And that had made all the difference.